from Sri Lanka time, and greetings to our respectable dignitaries, professors, scholars, ladies and gentlemen who join with us from different time zones. A hearty welcome to you all for the 4th International Conference of Agricultural Sciences, organized by the Faculty of Agricultural Sciences of Sabaragamu University of Sri Lanka.
Everything begins with ideas. Ideas provoke imagination. Imagination thrives for improvement. And these together with proper implementation makes a dynamic masterpiece.
Research plays a vital role in all these steps. Today, our theme is Empowering Research for Innovative and Sustainable Agriculture.
This conference aims to bring together scholars, practitioners, and policymakers from around the world to disseminate their research findings and scholarly knowledge in the fields of agriculture and agri-environment, agribusiness and agricultural economics, and livestock and aquaculture at an international academic forum and to broadening international networks. So, in this special moment, you all are here to witness the official commencement of the 4th International Conference of Agricultural Sciences.
Light symbolizes knowledge, purity, and is the dispeller of darkness. If you light a lamp for someone else, it will brighten your path also, said Lord Buddha. Representing his precious words, I would like to request the dignitaries to come forward and light the lamp as we inaugurate 4th International Conference of Agricultural Sciences.
To begin with, we warmly invite the guest of honor of the conference, Senior Professor Chandana Piyudawatta, Vice Chairman of the University Grants Commission of Sri Lanka,
Professor R. M. U. S. K. Ratnayaka, Vice Chancellor, Sabaragamu University of Sri Lanka,
Professor P. M. Asha Karunaratne, Dean, Faculty of Agricultural Sciences,
Professor T. S. P. Jayavira, representing Council members of Sabaragamu University of Sri Lanka,
Professor R. K. Muthukumarana, Conference Chair, Aginsight 2022,
Dr. J. P. D. A. P. Kumara, Professor R. K. Muthukumarana, Conference Chair, Aginsight 2022,
Dr. J. B. D. A. P. Kumara, Coordinator, Aginsight 2022,
Dr. G. E. M. Vimalasiri, Secretary, Aginsight 2022,
Ms. B. M. R. L. Basnayaka, Assistant Secretary, Aginsight 2022,
representing the Deans of Sabaragamu University of Sri Lanka, Professor H. M. S. Priyanath, Dean of the Faculty of Graduate Studies,
Ms. T. N. Izuri, Librarian, Sabaragamu University of Sri Lanka,
Mr. S. Uyangoda, Registrar, Sabaragamu University of Sri Lanka,
Mr. W. A. M. P. Senadira, Birsa, Sabaragamu University of Sri Lanka,
representing the Directors of the Centers of Sabaragamu University of Sri Lanka, Mr. D. Jasingha, Director, Center for Open and Distance Learning,
and representing the authors, Ms. Tilini Hansika.
Thank you very much. Before we proceed further this afternoon, we would like to invite the following dignitaries to come onto the head table.
Senior Professor Chandana Piyudawatta, Vice Chairman of the University Grants Commission of Sri Lanka.
Professor R.M.U.S.K. Ratnayaka, the Vice Chancellor, Sabaragamu University of Sri Lanka.
Professor P.M. Asha Karunaratne, Dean, Faculty of Agricultural Sciences.
Professor R.K. Muthukumarana, Conference Chair, Aginsight 2022.
Dr. J.B.D.A.P. Kumaran, Coordinator, Aginsight 2022.
Dr. G.E.M. Vimalsiri, Secretary, Aginsight 2022.
Dear sirs and madam, please kindly come to the head table.
Thank you. We think this is the high time to deliver our gratitudes toward our mother nation. So we cordially invite all of you to rise to the national anthem.
It is said that the giant ships cannot be sailed in rough seas without experienced captains. If we consider this massive event as a giant ship and this pandemic period as a stormy sea, it couldn't have sailed without the expertise of this calm and determined personality. She is none other than the chair of Aginsight 2022, Professor R.K. Muthukumarana. Dear Madam, on this special occasion, I cordially invite you to welcome the gathering.
Good afternoon, all of you from Sri Lankan time. Professor Sampath Amatunga, our chief guest, and Professor Chandana P. Udavatta, our guest of honor, and Professor R.M.U.S.K. Ratnayaka, Vice Chancellor, Professor Andrea Karp, our keynote speaker, and all the distinguished guests and invitees. On behalf of the organizing committee of the 4th International Conference of Agricultural Sciences, it's my privilege to welcome Senior Professor Sampath Amaratunga, our chief guest, Honorable Chairman, University of Grants Commission, Sri Lanka, and Senior Professor Chandana P. Udavatta, our guest of honor, Honorable Vice Chairman, University of Grants Commission, Sri Lanka, to this inaugural ceremony today. I bid very warm welcome to Professor Andrea Karp from the University of Nebraska, who is joining with us virtually from USA. It's my privilege to welcome Professor R.M.U.S.K. Ratnayaka, the Vice Chancellor of Sabaragamu University of Sri Lanka, to the inaugural ceremony of Aginsight 22. I bid very warm welcome to all the deans, directors, head of the departments, university academics, and administrative officers, all the distinguished guests and invitees, and all the presenters who are representing different academic, official, and industrial disciplines who are attending Aginsight 22 physically and virtually. We are honored to have your physical and virtual participation to Aginsight 22 inaugural ceremony, keeping beside COVID-19 pandemic, which is an unprecedented global emergency. The aim of Aginsight 22 is to bring national and international researchers, university academics, undergraduates, industry policymakers, and industry personnel into a common platform. Making our effort a great success, today we are able to publish 110 abstracts after a thorough reviewing process. I wish this conference allowed the researchers to rethink their exact responsibilities in national and global development, especially in alleviating poverty and securing food for the nation. As our conference theme implies, empowering research for innovative and sustainable agriculture, we wish that the knowledge disseminated from this conference and the feedback that they receive will help to resolve the existing burdens while bringing the strength to the agricultural and livestock sector. Before winding up my speech, let me allow thanking those who sweat for the success of this conference, making this into reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam.
Agriculture is the livelihood of majority in the rural sector and plays a key role in alleviating rural poverty. This has been well recognized from the time of independence, and there has always been a cabinet portfolio set aside for agriculture sector. The Faculty of Agricultural Sciences of Sabaragamu University of Sri Lanka is committed to make its utmost contribution to achieve its mission of bringing about prosperity through providing necessary guidance and coordination activities for sustainable development in agriculture. Now, I would like to call upon Professor P.M. Asha Karunaratne, Dean, the Faculty of Agricultural Sciences, to enlighten the gathering with her inspiring words.
Okay, good evening to all of you from Sri Lankan time. Good morning to those who are in other parts of the world. The chief guest, Senior Professor Sampath Amaratunga, the chairman of the University Grants Commission of Sri Lanka. Our guest of honor today, Senior Professor Chandana P. Udavatta, the vice chairman of the University Grants Commission of Sri Lanka. Our vice chancellor, sir, Professor Uday Ratnayaka, fellow academics, ladies and gentlemen. I am honored to address all of you today in this very important event as the Dean of the Faculty, and I extend very warm welcome to all of you who joined both physically and virtually from different destinations to this conference, Aginsight 2022, Empowering the Research for Innovation and Sustainable Agriculture. As we all know, the Aginsight is a biannual conference that is organized by the faculty, and this is the fourth cycle of this event that we have organized. COVID-19 pandemic, which has affected all of us in enormous ways, of course, impacted on our conference, so we had to extend the routine cycle due to the pandemic situation. However, the great efforts and dedications of the organizing committee has succeeded with 110 extended abstracts which have been accepted, 2 plenary sessions with speakers and paper presenters from 6 different countries. So I would like all of you to give a big round of applause for the organizing committee. You may still remember the pictures from the very first days of the COVID pandemic, where you saw the long queues in front of shops and supermarkets. And there were some media news, the empty shelves of supermarkets. The people were so frightened whether there's a food shortage. However, those fears were unfounded. All shelves were quickly restocked. Thanks to our farmers, researchers, and many other actors in the food supply chain, there were no such food shortage. So, but the COVID-19, other than the COVID-19 crisis, there are very big pressure on the planet due to the limitation of resources. So the global population growth and increase in prosperity could increase the demand for food by 50% in 2050s. So meanwhile, the planetary boundaries are already reaching their limits. Land and freshwater resources, the very basis for our food production, are under heavy stress. The oceans, forests, and other ecosystems being degraded at an unprecedented scale. So the challenges to feed the growing population is an area that agriculturists need to address. With the Sustainable Development Goals, the global community adopted a compiling vision with ambitious goals. In order to meet these goals, I would like to highlight few key areas that we need to focus. Firstly, we need to have greater investment where the need and the potential for increasing agricultural productivity to feed the growing population. Secondly, we have to make sure the smallholder farmers who produce nearly 70% of food consumed worldwide are the heart of our efforts. So the governments and the private sector can invest more with innovations and partnerships with farmers, organizations, and smallholders, providing access to better seeds, sustainable farming techniques, and modern technologies. Thirdly, we must ensure the agriculture and food systems become nutrition smart, because it's not just about the food that we eat. It is the amount of food that we eat, but it is the type of food that we have to consume. Fourthly, we need food systems that produce more food, but with fewer resources, as we are reaching the point where the capacity to meet current and future need is seriously limited. The Faculty of Agricultural Sciences, being one of the leading agriculture faculty situated in between picturesque mountain view of Belihulloya, produces graduates and postgraduates with wider spectrum of specialties in the field of agricultural sciences and food business management. The faculty teaching farm provides a sound practical training on all kinds of crop technologies and livestock management. Our academics and students are engaged in various types of fundamental research, transformation of research into innovations, commercializations, agribusinesses, and very importantly, communications of findings to relevant stakeholders. So we have very smart setup of laboratory facilities and field experimental facilities to do those research. The faculty publishes the Journal of Agricultural Sciences quarterly, which is an emerging science citation index journal with high impact articles on tropical agricultural issues. So I am pleased to announce that the faculty will have 7-storied building complex with more sophisticated laboratories and smart teaching and learning environment for the students and the staff within the year 2022. The facilities of the Agricultural Sciences of Sabaragamuwa University will be able to cater additional students from the national quota. At last, but not least, I would like to convey my sincere appreciation to all the delegates take their valuable time to participate in this important conference. Very importantly, I would extend my special thanks to Professor Chandana P. Udavatha, being the acting chairman of UGC today, participated physically to grace this occasion successfully. Thank you, sir. I wish you all a very productive meeting today and tomorrow over 4 parallel technical sessions and also successful outcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam. A leader is a person who inspires a group of people towards achievement of a common goal. Though the word leadership has many different definitions, for us the definition of the leadership is the Vice Chancellor. Now I cordially invite Professor R.M.U.S.K. Ratnayaka, Vice Chancellor of Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka, to deliver the presidential address as the head of the institution.
Ayubowan, Professor Sampath Amartunga, Chairman, University Grant Commission, Professor Chandana P. Udavatha, Vice Chairman, Dean of the Faculty, Professor Asa Karunaratna, professors and other staff of the faculty and all the staff of the university and all the other participants, especially the keynote speakers. I consider this as a complete privilege to be here today addressing this important conference. First of all, I would like to thank and also congratulate the organizing committee for being successful to organize this conference in this great level. I know you faced many difficulties during the past, when consider those difficulties that you faced, the level that you achieved is a very high and big level. So I again and again thank and congratulate the organizing team. As Professor Asha Karunaratne mentioned, this faculty is a faculty which always consider about research, it always dealing with an important sector, food. The agriculture is always dealing with food. Food is very important for all the living creatures. Even as Lord Buddha says, Sabbe Satta Ahara Atthika, all the creatures are depend on the food, so that you are handling the most important sector of this whole world to provide food for all the creatures. So the research and innovations in this field is also important. The conference theme, empowering research for innovative and sustainable agriculture. This is very timely. Now, because of this pandemic, as well as for other reasons. If we take other reasons, because of the population growth and all, we are facing food scarcity, and that has been increased to a very severe level because of the pandemic situation. Now the food availability is getting lower and lower compared to the demand. So that you need innovative technologies, sustainable technologies in agriculture. In that sense, the theme that you have chosen is very well matched with the situation which we are facing now. Yes, the faculty do many research, as well as while doing research, this research dissemination part also in very high level. This kind of different conference organized by faculty for researchers as well as sometimes undergraduates. Sometimes they organize different workshops, training programs, as well as publish very well-known, well-established journals. For that, as Dean mentioned, the facilities are now being developing. Those facilities are to be developed in future. For that, to have this precise agriculture or innovative technologies or sustainable method in agriculture, you have to have different laboratories, sophisticated equipments and all. For that, the university as well as the government is spending a lot and lot. I think our Vice Chairman may announce something special today for this, some additional help for this purpose. With that, saying that it's as our compeer mentioned, is to set target and achieve. Last year we set a target at the beginning of the year to have 1 billion of outside research funding. That was a very, very big target compared to the situation which we were before. But I would like to happily announce that we achieved 500 million target. That is outside research funding, 500 million. That is half of the target, but it's a big achievement compared to the situation which we were before. That is because of all these researchers who are presenting here, or not presenting but doing research in this university. And also, the target is still exists. We should and we must go to that target within this year. And also I would like to, I'm happy to say that from that target, 1 billion, quarter of that achieved in the first month of this year by some of the researchers in Faculty of Technology, Agriculture and Applied Sciences. So it's a big achievement. I think we can go to the target this year. With that, congratulating all the presenters and also congratulating all the organizers for this successful event, and also thanking Professor Sampath Amartunga as well as Professor Udawatta. I know they are very busy. Professor Udawatta is acting these days as chairman. So even though it's a very busy schedule, he came here to grace this occasion. Thank you very much. And also I would like to thank also former Dean of the Faculty who initiated these activities. With that, congratulating all of you and thanking all of you, and saying that we have a goal and we have a target. Let's get together, achieve this target. Thank you and wish you all the very best.
Thank you, sir. And I cordially invite Professor P.M. Asha Karunaratne to hand over the token of appreciation of Professor R.M.U.S.K. Ratnayaka, the Vice Chancellor, Sabaragamu University of Sri Lanka.
Thank you very much for your inspiring words, sir. The world's population is predicted to increase from approximately 7.9 billion in 2020 to 9.9 billion in 2050. In order to feed the world's population, innovation in how animal protein is produced need to be enhanced to ensure enough food for the world's growing population. To elaborate this debatable phenomenon, we have with us Professor Andrea Kapp, who would be delivering the keynote address of the conference. I cordially invite Professor Sumit Magamage to introduce Professor Andrea Kapp to the audience.
Very good afternoon. Chairman of University Grant Commission, Professor Sampath Amartunga, Acting Chairman, Vice Chairman of the University Grant Commission, Professor Chandanapi Udawatta, and Vice Chancellor, Sabaragamu University, and Dean, Faculty of Agriculture Sciences, and Deans of the University, and all the distinguished gathering here. Good afternoon and good morning for the West Hemisphere. So it is I am entrusted to introduce Professor Andrea Kapp for this keynote speech. So I will be one of the students. I did my postdoctoral studies with Andrea in 2013 and 2014. I have been known to Professor Andrea since a decade ago. Actually, Professor Andrea Kapp is a professor in the Department of Animal Science, Institute of Agriculture and Natural Resources at the University of Nebraska, United States of America. She is an eminent scientist who has more than 30 years of international research experience in the fields of reproductive physiology and endocrinology. Professor Kapp received her Bachelor of Science in Animal Science from Virginia Tech University in 1988 and her MS degree and PhD degree in reproductive physiology, endocrinology from the University of Nebraska, Lincoln, United States in 1991 and 1994 subsequently. She completed her postdoctoral trainings in cellular and molecular endocrinology in University of California, San Francisco, and Washington State University. She held positions of research assistant professor and director of the transgenic and knockout mouse facility within the Center of Reproductive Biology at Washington State University, and held assistant professorship in the Animal Science Department in Nebraska from 2000 and promoted to the post of associate professor in 2006. In 2011, she has been promoted to the post of professor, and in 2015, in recognition of her achievement, she was appointed to the Omdet Edward Professorship. Professor Kapp is a highly reputed scientist and teacher in the field of reproductive biology. She serves as a reviewer and also contributes as a member of the editorial boards of several reputed journals. She is an active member of the Society for the Study of Reproduction, American Society of Animal Science, American Society of Andrology, American Association for the Advancement of Science, and Nebraska Physiological Society. Her research has focused on vascular development, on gonadal morphologies, and how this affects the male and female fertility. She has identified androgen excess females in her university research herd that have similar characteristics to the polycystic ovarian syndrome in women, and she is investigating the causes for the androgen excess altered follicular development resulting in the anovulation and infertility in these female animals. In addition, she has also characterized how heifers in the research and herd achieve puberty, and in conducting genomic analysis and identified of SNPs that she contributes to the delay of precocious puberty. Overall, Professor Kapp has developed many animal models to understand the mechanisms involved in male and female reproductive process and benefit the livestock sector and potentially be translated to solve the human reproductive health and food-related issues in the world. Professor Kapp has authored over 140 high-impact scientific publications in prestigious journals including Science, Scientific Reports, Biology of Reproduction, PLOS ONE, Molecular and Cellular Endocrinology, FACET, Journal of Animal Science, Frontiers of Endocrinology. She is one of the most highly cited endocrinologists, having 6,200 citations of her research career. So she is, above all this research, she is a good human. I have been entrusted to introduce Professor Andrea C. Kapp to this forum. Professor Andrea, this is over to you. It is my privilege, you to, and also I'm thankful for you to accepting the invitation to be with us today. Thank you very much for in deep winter and giving early morning, 3 o'clock in the United States morning. So please, well, you are very warmly welcome, Andrea, for this session. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here with you today and to give this keynote, and hopefully what I say and talk about will inform you, excite you, and get you thinking about how we can increase our animal protein. And I'm going to try to share my screen with you and my slides. And I really appreciate the fact that Manjula introduced me. We had a wonderful time when he was here in 2013. So I welcome, or I'm coming to you from the University of Nebraska in Lincoln, and I wanted first to, before I started talking, to tell you a little bit about where I am, because some of you may not know where Nebraska is. And if I can get my pointer going, Nebraska is in the center of the United States, and we like to say the United States evolves around Nebraska, but not everyone would agree with us on that, I think. And the University of Nebraska-Lincoln is actually on the eastern part of the state. And the good thing about Nebraska is agriculture is the backbone of its economy. It's a state with diverse climates and topography, with rolling hills on the east side, the sand hills, which is made up of sand dunes that are larger than the beaches in California, and flat land towards the western part of the state. And as you can see, one of our largest commodities is the ruminant beef cow. This is a picture of the sandhills, and you can see that in parts of the sandhills, we actually have irrigated meadow that we make a lot of hay for our livestock. And we have to manage the sandhills because most of them are covered with grass, but we have to manage them very carefully in order to prevent erosion. Corn is grown in almost all parts of Nebraska. We also have wheat towards the western part of Nebraska that faces Wyoming and Colorado. In addition to corn and beef cattle being our largest exports, the other thing that we have in Nebraska a lot of is wind. So we have a lot of windmills that we've started implementing and trying to increase or diversify our energy sources. So that's a little bit about Nebraska and where I'm coming from today. As already has been stated several times, this is a map of the world population growth from 1700 to 2100. And you can see that our rate of growth rate of the world population decline, but our world population as a whole is increasing. And by 2100, they're suggesting that we're going to have 10.9 billion in the world. And we already have extreme poverty, we already have food scarcity, and I think probably the pandemic, more than anything, has really taught us a lot about food chains and breakdown in food chains. And we've even had some situations in Nebraska where we've had problems with slaughter facilities and not being able to actually get our animals to the slaughter facilities. So there's a lot of things that could go wrong that we probably hadn't expected before. The other thing that we need to keep in mind is the climate risks across the globe that are going to be occurring even today. I mean, not even to 2040, but I think that throughout the world, there is a lot more of these high-risk events that are occurring that include flooding, heat stress, water stress, wildfires. We especially in the United States are having a lot of controversy over water rights, and states are suing each other for water rights and trying to be able to irrigate from rivers that go across state lines. And we're having a lot of wildfires as well. So we have to take into consideration as we're trying to increase our protein, our animal protein production, that these animals are going to have to adapt to certain situations. And we're going to have to understand how these different climate risks actually impact the physiology of the animals that we are producing. So again, as I said, I'm coming to you from Nebraska, which agriculture is the backbone of Nebraska's economy. And our major exports are beef cattle and corn. And so it makes a lot of sense for me to talk to you about ruminants. And of course, my model ruminant is going to be the beef cow, but I would say that goats and sheep, as well as beef cattle, and maybe individual producers that are even producing reindeer or deer could benefit from some of the things that I'm going to be talking about today. So why ruminants? Why are ruminants important? Well, we know that cattle, or any ruminant species that's managed that has managed grazing on lands will provide an ecosystem that is going to promote biodiversity, it'll provide wildlife habitat, it'll enhance carbon sequestration, and it'll basically contribute to nutrient cycling. Because as we all probably realize, cattle are upcyclers. You know, they have that unique four-chambered stomach, which includes the rumen, that's going to enable us to get the nutrients they need from plants that humans can't consume and digest. Cattle can also eat other food byproducts, and one of the ones that I probably should have here on this slide is dried distiller's grains or distiller's grains from the ethanol industry. So another thing that Nebraska and throughout the Midwest, we have a lot of our ethanol plants, and most of that ethanol is going to go into our gasoline, but the byproducts from that ethanol processing are distiller's grains, which are then dried down, and we utilize them in as a supplement in our cattle feed. So the other thing to realize is that often cattle and other ruminants are grazing on land that are not suitable for growing other food products. And I would tell you that our research herd is on land, this basically swamp land, and that's why we have that land, because the cattle can utilize the forage in order to turn that into protein. If we look at the economic value of beef cattle ranching within the U.S., it was estimated that 24.5 billion, it's worth 24.5 billion annually. And if we look at it on a per beef cow value, about $1,000 in value per beef cow. So this is actually a tremendous economic value to states that can have the resources in order to produce beef cattle. And really, the only reason that maybe we're going to lose this grazing land might be due to urban development from our cities out into taking agricultural land. So what I'd like to just visit with you briefly, give you a snapshot, is to talk about the factors affecting reproductive performance and longevity. Because in order to produce animal protein, we really need to understand how to make this female more, have better reproductive performance. And because of the inputs that we put into these females, especially as they're reaching or attaining puberty, we want to also understand, because we know that females that reach puberty or at an earlier age are more likely to have greater longevity in the herd, and then are more sustainable and are able to develop a more sustainable product for the producer. Now, there is quite a bit of work that has delved into nutritional inputs into the dam, as well as nutritional inputs during development, especially during heifer development. But what I would suggest needs more work is the genetics surrounding why certain heifers become pubertal at certain ages, as well as environment and the impact of the environment on those heifers and how they attain puberty. And so what I'm going to discuss a little bit are some of the things that we're doing in our lab to actually address mainly genetics, but I'm going to talk briefly about environment, to enhance reproductive performance and longevity, to reduce the age of puberty, and try to start selecting females that will be able to attain puberty earlier and also be sustainable. So what is the ideal cow? I think we all don't really know what that is. We might have some ideas, and we might hope that some of the things on this list are really important. especially in the heifer. We know that we want to develop them at low cost or low inputs. We want to attain puberty earlier. We want to be able to breed them earlier because then they're going to have a calf probably each year, and we're going to retain them within the herd. We want them to have calves unassisted. We want them to have all of the maternal characteristics that enable this calf to survive. We want good temperament, we want them to remain structurally sound, disease tolerant, to fit their environment and to have low impact on the environment. And then at the end of the day, we want them to pass on their genetic merit to calves. So our hypothesis when we started out this project was to, we thought that by identifying how heifers attain puberty, that it would allow us to see the genetic variation and determine the genetic variation in the different pubertal groups, and then utilize the information from that genetic variation to select optimal females to be retained in the herd. And then along the way, we actually wanted to also think about climate differences, or each year how differences in moisture, drought, rainfall, etc. might impact that pubertal attainment in those heifers. So what I'm going to describe for you today is an experiment. And on this slide, I have approximately 8 years. But what I'll tell you is that we do have data from 2020 born heifers, and this year we're collecting data from 2022. So we'll actually have 10 years of data here this coming year. And what we've done is we've collected blood samples from weaning all the way to breeding in these animals. And you can see that when we started out in 2012, we have fewer blood samples and fewer animals. And as we went along, we increased the number of animals per year that we added to this experiment. And we also increased the frequency of our blood collections. So now we actually bleed once a week. And so what we're going to do is we're going to measure progesterone, and we're trying to understand when these females actually attain puberty by measuring rises in progesterone and cyclicity that's indicated by the hormone progesterone. So at the end of this time period, we're actually going to synchronize them in a more natural way with prostaglandin F2 alpha. We didn't want to give them progesterone because we wanted to see how they would naturally attain puberty. And then those that would respond to that synchronization will detect estrus, we'll use artificial insemination, and then about 2 weeks later, we'll add a cleanup bowl to actually fertilize any females that have not come into estrus to the artificial insemination. So in total, we had 824 animals in the study, and the numbers that I'm going to show you today. So from this, we actually developed 4 pubertal classifications. And I was pretty surprised because I guess initially I thought we were going to have a typical group and we were going to have an early group, and I really wasn't thinking about anything else. So let me just tell you a little bit about these pubertal classifications. And 7 years of this data is published in a report that we published this year in Biology of Reproduction. So on the y-axis is progesterone in nanograms per mil. The x-axis is actually month that blood samples were collected, so November, December, January, and so forth. Our dotted line is our threshold of progesterone at 1 nanogram per mil. So when progesterone rises or is above 1 nanogram per mil, we're saying that these females are attaining puberty and then they're maintaining puberty if they continue to have progesterone above 1 nanogram per mil throughout the collection period. So one of the things that we did is we looked at our historical data and we determined that 25% of the herd achieved puberty before March 12th. And so we utilized that date to determine the heifers that were early versus typical. And I'm showing you representative progesterone profiles from individual animals. So we do have animals that achieve puberty much earlier in our early group. And as you can see, about 45% of our animals were our typical group, or basically our controls for this experiment. 23 or almost 24% were early. And then we had two other interesting groups. So we had a start-stop group where females achieved or attained puberty by having progesterone greater than 1 nanogram per mil, but then stopped cyclicity, and then about 50% of them regained cyclicity, while the other 50% did not have a rise in progesterone throughout the collection period. And then a fourth group was our non-cycling group, and in this group, there was no progesterone greater than 1 nanogram per mil from weaning to breeding. And you can see that about 15% of our heifers were non-cycling and 15% were our start-stop. So another thing that I wanted to visit with you about is to talk a little bit about the numbers and how the numbers changed throughout the years. So to orient you to this graph, again, I have the year, and these are when the heifers are born. So heifers born in 2012, 2013, and so forth. And then below, I have the pubertal groups and the number and percentages for that year that actually were classified into these puberty groups. And I want to make sure that I tell you that we developed a stats program, or a statistical analysis program, where we plugged in our progesterone, and then we wrote a program to actually analyze it and then classify our females into these 4 different pubertal groups. What I wanted to discuss with you a little bit is that in 2012, we did experience a drought in Nebraska. And so those females, those dams that were gestating heifers, were exposed to this drought. And when we looked at these heifers that were born in 2013, what we see is that there was an increase in typical females that were classified as typical, a reduction in early, and I'm comparing it to the years before and the years after. And then we had an increase in the number of heifers that were non-cycling. So we think that this drought that these dams experienced affected the ability of these heifers to actually become early pubertal, and instead we moved some heifers into the typical and the non-cycling group. In a second situation, in 2015, there was a reason that we couldn't get supplement to actually supplement our dams. And normally we're going to supplement our dams during the late second and third trimester of gestation. And so in 2015, we did not supplement our dams. They would have offspring that would be born in 2016. And what you can see again is that we had an increase in our percentages of typical and non-cycling females, where we had reductions in those females that actually achieved puberty at an earlier time point. So I think this, more than anything else, tells us that nutrition and nutrients that are given to the dam do affect the offspring. and indeed do affect the ability of the offspring to achieve puberty at an earlier time frame, and in fact may cause more heifers to be in our delayed pubertal category. So I'm just going to provide a couple slides to tell you about our growth characteristics and our reproduction characteristics of these females. So if we look at weaning weight, we can see that our start-stop and our non-cycling females had lower adjusted weaning weights, and our yearling weights and our start-stop were lower, and our non-cycling were similar to our start-stop. So basically, they had reduced growth rates at weaning, and that carried through to their yearling weight as well. If we look at our reproductive characteristics and we look at the percent reproductive tract score 5 that we found within our heifer puberal classification, and what this measurement is a measurement of the reproductive tract and whether the reproductive tract is mature or not. So reproductive tract score 5 would be the highest maturity, where 1 would be the lowest. So we can see that our early heifers had more reproductive tract score 5, followed by our typical, our start-stop, and our non-cycling. We also had reductions in our uterine horn diameter in our non-cycling group compared to the other pubertal groups. And when we looked at our response, our estrus response to prostaglandin F2 alpha, again, you can see that our start-stop and our non-cycling groups were reduced when compared to our typical and our early. If we look at those that actually calved, and if they calved in the first 21 days, then they responded to the artificial insemination, what we can see is that we had a lower percentage of our non-cycling group that actually calved in the first 21 days, and so less of them would have probably again responded to their synchronization and actually conceived to artificial insemination. So I think you start to see a trend where our start-stop and our non-cycling females are having reduced reproductive characteristics along with reduced growth. In addition to looking at these parameters, we also took for 2 years white and red blood cell blood samples and evaluated white and red blood cell parameters. And I don't really have time to show you the data, but what I'll tell you is that we had increased monocytes or white blood cells in our non-cycling versus our early heifers. This would indicate potential inflammation occurring and potentially maybe causing that delayed puberty. We also had some altered red blood cell parameters, and we're still trying to investigate what this means in our non-cycling females, which suggested that they may be anemic as well as they may have reduced liver function. And so we're investigating that to determine what's going on. Okay. So our next step was then to start to design experiments to determine potential variants in candidate genes to test to see how we might be able to utilize genomic analysis to allow us to determine females or be able to select females that would be optimal for reproduction. So we did some preliminary GWAS as well as whole genome sequencing, and the combination of these techniques, we actually found 7 genes that were of interest, and these genes were involved in inflammation, ovulation, neuronal activity, and oxidative stress. And so we're investigating those and trying to see how we can utilize them. I'm just going to show you a couple brief candidate genes. One is follicle stimulating hormone receptor. We found 6 SNPs that explained the variation between our typical and our delayed puberty or non-cycling females. And so what we're doing now is we're doing some Cas genotyping to go back to DNA that we have from our herd and try to see how these different SNPs segregate within those pubertal classification in the hopes that we might be able to use one or several in order to identify those that might be specific to pubertal classifications. We also have some SNPs that have a tendency to explain the variation, and those are in anti-Mullerian hormone and anti-Mullerian hormone receptor 2. So just want briefly to say that we've also collected environmental data from weaning to breeding, both temperature, moisture, relative humidity, and we're utilizing those to model and to evaluate how those parameters during different months may have caused heifers to be categorized into different pubertal classifications. So in summary, hopefully I've shown you at least a snapshot that start-stop and non-cycling or delayed pubertal heifers had reduced weaning weight and yearling rate, so they had reduced growth. They also may have aspects of inflammation, as indicated by the increase in monocytes in our delayed pubertal classification. And we do have some information that we may be able to utilize genes involved in inflammation, ovulation, oxidative stress, and neuronal activity that could contribute to this altered attainment of puberty in these heifers, as well as some targeted SNPs within genes that previously have been shown to affect puberty as well. So some of our future directions or future questions that I'm going to leave you with is, what genetic factors may cause this altered pubertal attainment? And really what we want to know is how heritable are these genes, because that's really how we can get to the point of selecting for them and then developing these females that are optimal for our different systems. How does environmental factors impact attainment of puberty? Should we start looking at epigenetics as well? We know that nutrition is going to affect our system, so we need to keep that in mind. And then basically, how can we start modeling these different scenarios to determine impacts on reproductive performance and longevity? And at the end of the day, how can we start selecting females that are more resistant to environmental perturbations? And I think what it's going to take is it's going to take many of us as investigators with large data sets sharing these resources throughout the world in order to transfer information and actually promote production of animal protein. So with that, I'd like to acknowledge my laboratory. I've had some excellent master students, Sarah Nafziger and Sarah Tenley and Jessica Keene, some PhD students, Adam Summers and Mohammed, as well as a postdoc, Courtney Sutton, a really great lab manager, and I have a new PhD student now working on this genomic data, as well as some undergrads. Some really great collaborators at the University of Nebraska and U.S. Meat Animal Research Center, and definitely our funding sources. And I think you'll recognize this individual here. Manjula was here whenever we started this project, or was in the second year of this project, and it was a joy to have him and all of these excellent scientists come through my lab. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions if we have time. And if we don't have time, if people want to email me questions, we could do that as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Andrea, for your nice presentation. And so I would like to have a very brief question about how the neural attainment is right now. We consider the 10 months to 12 months or 15 months. So how would you think about the future after this end of this project? Where we would like to stay, the 9 months, or 9.5, or 8 months? Or how do you think about the? Now this will be always when we decrease we are trying to decrease the age of pubertal attainment. So where you think about the best time or age period we could think about this attainment in point of view? Thank you.
So you're asking me, and I'm sorry, there's a little bit of feedback, so I'm having a little bit of hard time understanding you, but you're basically asking me how to reduce the age of puberty, basically.
Yes, yes.
Right? And what I'm going to say is, I think that there.
Sorry, and I think there was some technical issue. I think we already sort it out. Sorry for.
It's okay. I was worried about this. I hope that you at least heard most of what I talked about earlier.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor, for your insightful thought, setting tone for our day-to-day deliberation. Thank you very much again for accepting our invitation and join with us today to color this event. Please accept our token of appreciation.
Thank you very much, madam. Now we cordially invite you to pay your kind attention to the research highlights of the Aginsight 2022.
Sri Lanka, proverbially known as the Pearl of the Indian Ocean, bears nearly 22 million human population today. As impressed by Food and Agriculture Organization, more than 25% of the total human population in Sri Lanka do not receive enough food, making the child malnutrition to be an emerging threat. In 2019, Sri Lanka ranked 66th out of 113 countries on the Global Food Security Index. The current position forces us to rethink the necessity of fulfilling the food requirement of the nation. The current contribution from agriculture sector to Sri Lanka's gross domestic production is 8.4%. In India and Nepal, it is much higher and remains 18.3% and 23.1% respectively. Farmers do provide food for us. However, the leadership, knowledge and the technology should be transferred to them from the experts proficient in the fields of agriculture and livestock production. Research is the key which provides the base that is required for the transfer of knowledge and technology, thus helping in conserving the global standards. Since 2019, we have been affected badly by the drawbacks resulted from the COVID-19 pandemic, an unprecedented global emergency. Though the pandemic has been interpreted primarily as a public health crisis, it has created a significant impact on global economies, including the disruption of the food supply chain. Undoubtedly, it is in the hands of researchers and professionals who can find practical-oriented solutions to overcome these issues. With the aim of contributing to the national and global development, the Faculty of Agricultural Sciences of the Sabaragama University of Sri Lanka organizes its 4th International Conference of Agricultural Sciences Aginsight 2022. In keeping with the theme of empowering research for innovative and sustainable agriculture, more than 100 extended abstracts presented in the professional and student forums were compiled in the proceedings under the themes of agriculture and agri-environment, agribusiness and agricultural economics, and livestock and aquaculture. The conference aims at bringing researchers, professionals, policymakers, and undergraduates to a common platform and disseminate their research findings and scholarly knowledge at an international academic forum, intending to broaden international networks while contributing to the national and global development. An eminent scientist, Professor Andrea Cobb, a professor from the Department of Animal Science, Institute of Agriculture and Natural Resources at the University of Nebraska, USA, conducts the keynote speech on the topic Animal Reproduction Innovations to Increase Animal Protein, Genomic Selection, Gene Editing, and Donor Spermatogenesis. This timely important thematic area describes how advanced reproductive technologies can be used to produce animal-originated food for human. A plenary session on the role of nutrition in sustainable livestock production will be conducted by Dr. Walter Samar Singh, the Managing Director, Superfeed Private Limited, Sri Lanka. Professor Chambika Lianagay, Professor in Facilities Management, School of Engineering, University of Central Lancashire, UK, will conduct our next plenary session themed Resilience in Food Systems. This study was conducted on 384 households with home gardens in an extent less than 40 perches and 50 coconut kernel-based industries registered under the Coconut Development Authority in Gampaha, Purnagala and Puttanam districts in Sri Lanka. The study found that the local fresh nut consumption is nearly 2/3 from the total number of nuts in terms of the coconut kernel-based industries. Sri Lanka has reached a transitionary stage with a huge demand for both processed products and fresh nuts in the international market. This study surveyed the challenges faced by the ornamental fish farmers in Kandy district during production, marketing, supply and logistics as a consequence of COVID-19 pandemic. Challenges faced when entering the export market are also discussed. The key seed characteristics of the parental cultivars of the tea seed gardens were assessed in this study to generate necessary information to plan and implement the productivity enhancement programs to fulfill the increasing demand of the growers. This study investigates the culturally determined tendency of the dwellers in an isolated forest-dependent community in Sri Lanka to resettle away from the forest and closer to other human settlements. This study identified the volatiles present in the larval flowers of fall armyworms and studied their effect on the oviposition preference of gravid females, which could be used for green pest management. The impact of hormone use perception on broiler chicken consumption in Kandy district, Sri Lanka was assessed using a pre-tested questionnaire. The findings concluded the myths of using hormones to gain rapid growth rates in broilers. The hormones assumed to be present in broiler meat can impose health risk in human, and frequent broiler meat consumption during childhood has an impact on the early onset of puberty in adolescent girls, and that these myths were based on the information gathered from the general public. Different misconceptions that exist among the community in the Western Province, Sri Lanka, in relation to consumption of chicken eggs were assessed. This study revealed that two misconceptions do exist. Village chicken eggs are more nutritious than commercial eggs, and daily consumption of chicken eggs causes high blood cholesterol levels while increasing the risk of coronary diseases. The impact of SARS-CoV-2 pandemic on the purchasing behavior and the consumption pattern of poultry-derived foodstuff by the communities in 3 districts of Sri Lanka was assessed. SARS-CoV-2 pandemic has increased egg consumption frequency and changed the purchasing frequencies and the amount of chicken or processed chicken products purchased by the community. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected food insecurity due to physical and economic barriers to food access. This study concludes that some households were secured due to home garden cultivation. The importation of quality palm oil and dehydrated chips would mitigate the impact of declining nut production and help meet the local oil demand as well as boost the industry. This study investigates the support and readiness of local institutions and their offices related to perception on institutional support towards Sri Lankan agro-based SMEs in facing sustainability challenges. This research examines the impact of ICT in large-scale agricultural producers' productivity by analyzing convenience, accuracy, and efficiency gained by utilizing ICT tools in large-scale agricultural companies. The Faculty of Agricultural Sciences of the Sabaragama University of Sri Lanka strongly believes that Aginsight 2022 will greatly uplift your research experiences and promote research interests in the respective fields of your specialization. Thank you and best wishes for fruitful sessions.
Since you all have witnessed the scope and the gravity of 4th International Conference of Agricultural Sciences, we believe this is high time to listen to the thoughts of one of the eminent personalities who played a crucial role in shaping the research culture of our university. He is none other than our guest of honor today, Senior Professor Chandana P. Udavatta. I cordially invite Ms. B.M.R.L. Basnayaka, the Assistant Secretary, Aginsight 2022, to introduce Senior Professor Chandana P. Udavatta to the audience. Thank you.
Good evening, all of you. It's my great honor and pleasure to introduce Senior Professor Chandana P. Udavatta, Vice Chairman of the University Grant Commission and former Vice Chancellor of Sabaragama University of Sri Lanka on behalf of the organizing committee. Professor Chandana P. Udavatta obtained his basic degree from University of Peradeniya in 1986. And he has completed his Master of Philosophy in Material Science in 1991 from University of Peradeniya, Sri Lanka and Uppsala University, Sweden. He has obtained his Doctor of Philosophy in Material Science in 1996 from University of Peradeniya and Uppsala University, Sweden. Moreover, he has conferred 2 postgraduate diplomas, respectively, Diploma in Chemistry and Chemical Engineering in 1997 from Tokyo Institute of Technology, Japan, Diploma in Biotechnology in 2006 from International Center for Agricultural Training, South China Agricultural University, China. And from 1998 to 2001, he has completed his postdoctoral studies in Kochi University, Japan. He obtained his professorship in 2010 in chemistry, and in 2010 he has promoted as the senior professor in chemistry. In his 34 years of teaching life as an academic, he has served to Department Chemistry, University of Peradeniya, Department of Applied Sciences, Rajarata University of Sri Lanka, Institute of Chemistry, Ceylon, Postgraduate Institute of Science, University of Peradeniya, Department of Physical Sciences and Technology, Sabaragama University of Sri Lanka, Department of Chemistry, University of Kelaniya, and German Jewelry Research and Training Institute. As briefly, Professor Udavatta has published 20 peer-reviewed journals, 43 abstracts and extended abstracts, including more than 700 Google Scholar citations. He has obtained 4 local and international patents and contributed 27 national-level report writing. Further, he has awarded 5 research grants and 8 professional membership and scholarships in his academic career, and have supervised more than 20 postgraduate research students. Professor Udavatta has served in many academic and administrative positions in locally as well as internationally. After completion of his postdoctoral work, he has joined to the Department of Chemistry, University of Peradeniya as a temporary senior lecturer. During that period, apart from his contribution towards teaching, has served as the officer in charge of the X-ray powder diffraction machine and developed and interface a computer software program. And he worked as the first director, Science Industry Interaction Cell, attached to the Faculty of Science, University of Peradeniya. Professor Udavatta served as the Postgraduate Institute of Sciences, University of Peradeniya from 2006 to 2010 as the course coordinator of the Master's Program in Gemology and Industrial Minerals. In the period of 2004 to 2007, he has worked as the chairman of Lanka Phosphate Limited. From 2001, Professor Udavatta have been working very closely with the Gems and Jewelry Research Training Center, Ratnapura, as a visiting scientist and contributed to develop many training programs and research laboratory there. From 2007 to 2010, he has served as the chairman of Sri Lanka Foundation, and from 2006, Professor Udavatta has served to Sabaragama University of Sri Lanka as a senior lecturer, professor, and senior professor in chemistry attached to the Department of Physical Science and Technology, Faculty of Applied Sciences. Most importantly, he worked as the Vice Chancellor of Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka from 2014 to 2017 by providing true leadership to the university, and currently he is serving as the Vice Chairman, University Grant Commission, Chairman Learn, and also the Program Director, AHEAD project from the last year. So it's impossible to mention his every single accomplishment with this limited time period because there are a lot. Thank you very much, sir, for coming all the way from Colombo and bestowing us with your own presence today. So without taking much time, I would like to cordially invite our guest of honor, Senior Professor Chandana P. Udavatta, Vice Chairman of the University Grant Commission, former Vice Chancellor of Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka, to address the gathering. Sir, over to you.
Thank you. So, very good afternoon to everybody. Professor Sampath Amartunga, who joined just now online, and Professor Udaya Ratnayaka, the Vice Chancellor of Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka, Professor Asa Karnaratna, the Dean Faculty of Agricultural Sciences, and Professor Kumaraman, Conference Chair, and Dr. Abu Kumara, the Conference Coordinator, and Dr. Eranga Vimasiri, the Secretary of this forum or this conference. And I see several deans are here, and my fellow deans, and head of the department, and the registrar, and the bursar, the librarian, and the academic community of agricultural sciences in mainly, and the other members of the academic staff of Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka, and my dear friends and students. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizing committee for inviting me to grace this occasion. Roni Muthukumana has phoned me about just a couple of months ago, maybe last year, somewhere in October or maybe even before, and asked me to reserve the date January 26th for your conference. So in that time, I said to her that, yes, I will come, definitely. So, in spite of some busy schedule at Colombo, but I managed to come here in the yesterday night, and also thank you very much for giving the opportunity to address all this academic forum. And it's great honor and privilege for me to give some address, give some thoughts, or share some thoughts with you. Thank you very much. As the introducer told to the audience, I am not new to this Sabaragamuwa, and I am from Sabaragamuwa. So this is my, I started Sabaragamuwa journey from 2006 from Buttala, then we came here. And after that, until I assumed duties at UGC, I was here. So, so during that time, so I had opportunity to serve as a Vice Chancellor from 2014 to 2017. As she said, so I have initiated the research culture because I also do a lot of research. I like research. So therefore, I was able to give some grants from the capital allocation, and due to that, I think most of academic staff members, I remember the number now, the 22 grants were released at 2016. So nowadays, actually, the results are coming from those grants. And I saw that so some of our colleagues, academic colleagues, got good publication out of that, and also good citation. So I think, I hope now Professor Uday Ratnayake will also follow the same thing, and everybody knows that there's the big problem in the country in these days, money. So however, I hope he will overcome this one, probably. And that's about everybody, since everybody knows me, I don't know to talk about Sabaragobua here much. Anyway, once you come back to this conference, actually, why do we have conferences? Actually, the conferences are a part of our life, because we all are the academic community members. So, of course, so not only publishing papers in the conference, but you gain a lot of other benefits by attending or by organizing conferences. So, of course, some of you may think about the publishing paper is must. So, of course, it's one of major idea. But it is not only that. So, there are several aims or objectives having a conference. Already the earlier speakers already said that, because there's a chance for scholars to get together and exchange your ideas, and also you will have a chance to meet your heroes, academic heroes, and also you may find interesting places to go or visit, but it is restricted due to this pandemic situation. So that is the reason why we are having some kind of hybrid conferences. But however, previously we had a chance to visit some places, maybe in the local and also the foreign travels. So conferences aims to bring scholars together, as I said earlier, and also to bring the policymakers and also policymakers in internationally and nationally as well as internationally, and to give present their finding and also some policy making decision. That's very important. But coming up to this today's or your conference, so this is Aginsight 2022. So this definitely, when I was having a small chat with Professor Muthukumar, so she said that so you want to bring this expertise or very experienced people around the globe on agriculture, agri-environment, agri-business, and agricultural economics, and livestock development and developing of an emerging economics. So I already said that there are several, how can I say, very important matters we can come across when you are having and when you are participating or when you are organizing conferences. So also, it's a very good idea to put things in your CV also. So your CV can be updated, and also you can influence and you can see some industrial people around you, especially because we are doing the research from the public fund, most of you. So therefore we have a responsibility to bring the research knowledge to the public. So most of the time the stakeholders of this. So therefore there was no way to do that previously, but due to this ahead operation, we were able to make or formulate some kind of what is called, how can I say, way or a unit in each and every university. It's called University Business Linkage Cell. So I used to, as she said that when she was introducing me, as the first director, when we formulate this type of cell at University of Peradeniya, especially the science faculty. But this is now this kind of cell is already formulated or established entire university system now, the state-owned university system. It is called UB cell, and one of senior academics is serving as the director, and also there is a manager, cell manager. And the University Grant Commission we have already made a standing committee on UBCell. So usually we had only the academic standing committee. We used to have it, so most of you know. But our chairman, Professor Sampath Amrutunga, so he wants to expand this one into even the non-academic side. So very recently we made another standing committee on sports. So like that we have a standing committee on UBCell. So I do the chairmanship of that. So UBCell is operating in order to facilitate the research finding, what you do here, to the research finding we want to bring into the industry. So from that or through that UBCell, you will be able to do filing for a patent application. I know that some of you academics are here already filed the patents internationally and locally and internationally. So I know the PCT has already obtained some people, some are pending. So especially this type of conference we really need, because as agriculturists, so you all have the big responsibility to do some service, big service. I think the country is waiting for your thoughts and also your action, especially these days, especially in these days, to overcome the current problems encountering everybody. So therefore, we need this multidisciplinary approach on the globally in order to solve some problems what we already face. And then I came to know that this forum this program is open for even the student forum. So tomorrow, so with various disciplines in agriculture sciences. And also I was informed by the organizing committee. So there are about 110 the presentation tomorrow with the 2 session, I think. So, and also I would like to thank Professor Andrew and Ram, I think, for giving this keynote address about this livestock development. Since I am now the director, program director of head operation, so I would like to note that I have some small statistics. So we have already given 2 fellowships, scholarships in order to do the PhD studies out of 12. So Sabaragama University, we got 12 scholarships program for PhD. So from 12, 2 are from this faculty. One is working at Japan, another one is working in Malaysia. And also in the research area 2, LTLC grants. So the faculty grants, you got 120 million faculty grant, and Department of Agribusiness, you got 18 million. In the research area 3, so agriculture faculty, you got 2 grants out of 9 grants Sabaragama University won. So in addition to that, the Professor, your Dean, the Professor Karunaratna and Asha, our Vice Chancellor, requested us to give some support, especially the agriculture faculty now is coming up. So she wants to furnish that. I think last year in the management committee of head operation, I have already tabled that one. So we got a positive answer for. I think with the permission of my chairman, Professor Amaratunga, I think we can give some support in order to get, in order to go for the furniture. So I hope to get at least 50 million, at least, we'll see, okay? Since it is very urgent, I could understand, so we will try our level best to support you. Probably tomorrow or very recently, so I may tell you exactly, but you can keep some hope. I think Professor Amaratunga is also there, so he might also confirm that one, I hope. So then when I see this one. Actually, some of other universities may angry with me, but we have to manage it. Anyhow, we'll see in the positive way. So by conducting this type of events, we must be able to show not only to know how many papers you publish. It is not our main duty here, but how much you give a contribution for the national and international development. That is most, we all the researchers should keep in mind. So from that point of thought, I would like to wind up my small speech. And I hope, actually I was very much like to come here and then give some, or share some thoughts with you. And then that is the reason I came here today, even yesterday night. And I'm very glad that even during this presentation of this video piece, and we have seen how you have developed some projects, some research ideas. So I'm not going to take much of your time, and thank you very much, everybody who listened to me. And I know that several, 100 people are joining online. I would like to say hi to them also. And also some people joined from abroad. And then thank you very much for everybody who gave the contribution to this event success. And then I wish you very successful conference tomorrow at the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much again for bringing us that great news as well. So I cordially invite Professor R.K. Muthukumarana to hand over the token of appreciation to Senior Professor Chandana P. Udawatta.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, madam. Now, we would like to respectfully call upon the chief guest of today's event, Senior Professor Sampath Amaratunga, the chairman of the University Grant Commission of Sri Lanka, to deliver the invited speech and to share his views and bless us with his kind words. To introduce our chief guest, I cordially invite Dr. J.B.D.A.P. Kumara, the coordinator of Aginsight 2022.
Very good evening to all of you. Respected distinguished staff members, researchers, students, and sponsors. It's given me great honor and pleasure to introduce our chief guest, none other than the Senior Professor Sampath Amaratunga, Chairman, University Grant Commission of Sri Lanka, to this important forum, Aginsight 2022. Senior Professor Sampath Amaratunga is an economist attached to the Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce, University of Sri Jawaharlal, Sri Lanka. After obtaining his first degree from Sri Jawaharlal University, he completed his postgraduate studies at University of Colombo, Saga University, and Kogoshima National University, Japan. He has published over 75 reputed publications, both locally and internationally, in his discipline. Senior Professor Amaratunga has won several awards, including the prestigious Research Excellence Award of the Kouchi Society of Rural Economics, Japan. Considering his contribution, in 2021, he was awarded Japanese First Award, also known as Empire's Award, the Order of Rising Sun. Having more than 30 years of experience in university education, he became Vice Chancellor for the Jawaharlal University. Professor Amarutsunga has contributed greatly to uplift the standard of University of Jawaharlal. During his tenure, he established 3 new faculties: Faculty of Technology, Faculty of Engineering, and Faculty of Allied Health Science. He was appointed as the chairman of the Committee of Vice Chancellors and Directors of Universities, CVCD, in 2019, with the wish to extend his effort and support to develop higher education sector in Sri Lanka. In 2020, he started new journey as chairman of University Grant Commission. We are honored today because despite your busy schedule and health issues, you are with us, sir. Sir, we cordially invite you to address the gathering. Thank you very much.
Vice Chancellor, University of Sabaragamuwa, of course, Vice Chairman, University Grants Commission, who is physically participating there, Deans of Faculties, Conference Chair, Academia, ladies and gentlemen. We all know globally, the entire education sector has been under tremendous pressure to sustain itself under COVID-19 pandemic. Lately, it has been able to cope with transformation to online platform, although with different capabilities depending on the development stage of the nation. Sri Lanka has done very well compared to our South Asian neighboring countries. In response to the COVID-19 crisis, higher education institutions across the world adjusted all their activities to an emergency remote mode. During the academic year 2021, institutions moved from this emergency mode to exploring a large variety of hybrid or fully online arrangements as the national COVID-19 safety measures shifted depending on the status of the pandemic. Against this backdrop, the role of quality assurance in ensuring that quality standards are maintained and supporting the university community in their work, while providing assurance to the public of the status of quality in higher education. Sri Lanka made a remarkable transition to online tertiary education after closing its higher education institutions in response to the coronavirus disease, the pandemic. According to the universities, the surveyed, nearly 90% of student response have been able to access online education. This rate is comparable to developed countries, even like Japan. All interest service providers in Sri Lanka provided free internet access to university servers during COVID-19. This has been instrumental in promoting online learning for students. So we all know when it is come to universities, just teaching and learning is not enough. The other function is examination. So without having proper technology, it is very much difficult to conduct examination online. However, with enormous difficulties, not only faced by academia, including students, they have given remarkable support to the system to keep the live wire of higher education having finishing exams as well during last 2 years. So normally to conduct exams, we all know the academia, how much the branches of examinations are important. So during this time, even this work has been conducted by academics in Sri Lanka to keep the momentum of higher education. So at this time, I would like to congratulate and also to say the UGC, the consent of our higher education. It is marvelous, the contribution made by academia. Then the research part, of course, we have somehow paddled learning, teaching, and examination with enormous difficulties. But places like Sabaragamu, the conference today, the happening. So I have watched the whole keynote speech by the US university academic, the lady. So this internet or the technology have taken everybody very much closer in our system. So I'm addressing Sabaragamu all the way from Colombo. And we have not experienced this, and we have never ever thought about having a conference online, speaking chairman UGC to the Sabaragamu University online through learn facilities. Those were dreams. But today, I must thankful to the university community, academia, administrators, non-academic staff, especially our postgraduate students and undergraduates. We have done a tremendous work to keep this live wire in our system. So when it is come to ranking, we all know one university have now close to 1,500 range, another one within 1,500 to 2,000, another 3 universities in the range of 2,000 to 2,300, and another 5 among 2,003 to 3,000. So Sabaragamu University also doing very well, and really the UGC would like to appreciate what the present VC is doing in the area of research. So actually UGC requested former Dean of Agriculture to set up another faculty related to animal sciences. So proposal already made, and UGC is going to positively consider the proposal, and government also waiting for other rest of the work. So time is 5 o'clock here. I have seen 145 were online for the keynote speech That was delighted. I have never expected at that time listen to a keynote, such a large amount, which we normally don't practice when we have physical meetings normally. So let me wind up my speech. Thank you very much again, organizers and the VC, all deans, especially this is our Vice Chairman's place, Sabaragamuwa. We hope for the best, and we have given 50% ceiling, and it is reported that not everyone has taken the booster. We are waiting to fulfill the 100%, the range, to open up the other 50% as well. And thank you very much, and wish you all the best from UGC.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for your valuable words. And we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude for you to join with us today despite your extremely busy schedules. And at the same time, we would be grateful if you could kindly accept our e-token of appreciation. Thank you very much, sir. As we come to the close of our inaugural program, I cordially invite Dr. G.E.M. Vimalasiri, Secretary, Aginsight 2022, to propose the vote of thanks.
A very good evening to you all. Dear distinguished invitees, on behalf of the organizing committee of the 4th International Conference of Agriculture Sciences, or Aginsight 2022, it's my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. First of all, I extend my most sincere thanks to the chief guest of this event, Senior Professor Sampath Amaratunga, the chairman of the University Grant Commission of Sri Lanka, for accepting our invitation. Thank you very much for the time spared from your busy schedule to grace this occasion. Also, I extend a very hearty vote of thanks to the guest of honor of this event, Senior Professor Chandana P. Udavatta, the Vice Chairman of the University Grant Commission of Sri Lanka, and the former Vice Chancellor of the Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka. Thank you very much, sir, for your physical participation in this event, even in a very busy schedule. Our heartiest thanks goes to Professor Andrea Kapp, the keynote speaker of Aginsight 2022. I would like to thank her for her fascinating keynote speech to touch the young minds and grace the event even with nearly 10 hours time difference. Next, I would like to thank our Vice Chancellor, Professor R.M.U. S.K. Ratnayaka, for guiding us from the beginning to the end of the Aginsight 2022. I also extend thanks to Professor Asha Karunaratna, Dean of the Faculty of Agriculture Sciences, by providing her encouragement to make this event success in every aspect. I also extend thanks to Professor M.M.P. Sumit, former Dean, who helped us at the beginning of the Aginsight 2022. Events like this cannot happen overnight. So, as the wheels start rolling weeks ago and requires planning and bird's eye for detail. Here, we are fortunate enough to be backed by a dedicated and a motivated team who provided their fullest cooperation from the beginning to the end of the event, as well as guiding us towards the success in every corner. Therefore, I would like to thank all the chairpersons and members of the committees of the conference for their great service towards Aginsight. Also, I would like to thank all the academic staff members of the Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka, as well as the Faculty of Agriculture Sciences, who helped us in numerous ways. I would take this opportunity to thank all the reviewers and copy editors, as well as Dr. Champika, Mr. Naveenan, Mr. Nimesh, Ms. Ovini, and Mr. Prasad, who compiled the proceedings book. I also extend thanks to Registrar, Bursa, Curator of the Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka, and the Assistant Registrar of the Faculty of Agriculture Sciences, and all the administrative and non-academic staff members for helping us in this function. This would be a miracle without our most valued sponsors. Our sincere thanks extend to Mr. A. Somasundara and Mr. Nuwan Valikala of Analytical Instruments Private Limited, Mr. KMB Doloswala of Versatile Business Solutions, Mr. Dulanga Subasinghe and Mr. Amila Ratnavardhana of Hemsons Internationals for funding us to make this event financially sound. Then I'd like to give my vote of thanking to our technical arrangement team led by Mr. Dangalla, Director for Computer Studies, Mr. Premwardhana, Mr. Satuta, Ms. Udayangani, Mr. Nimishan, Mr. Sadeepa, Mr. Sanjeeva, Mr. Janaka, and Ms. Indumini for supporting us to arrange the event successfully in virtual mode. I also extend thanks to Mr. Heritha Nirmalgoda for enlightening the event with his exciting banners, and Mr. Anura, Mr. Indika from the audiovisual unit for providing their fullest cooperation to succeed this event. My heartiest thanks goes to our chairperson, coordinator, and the assistant secretary of the 4th International Conference of Agriculture Sciences for their invaluable contribution during the last few months period. As mentioned by the Dean Madam and the chairperson, we received 137 papers from different countries and several institutes in Sri Lanka. So at last but not at least, we are grateful to all the authors and presenters who trusted us, the Aginsight of Faculty of Agriculture Sciences of the Sabaragamu University of Sri Lanka. I would like to thank all who came here today to make this event memorable, especially deans of the faculties, council members, heads of the departments, and directors of the institutes, the librarian, and the all staff members as well as the students. So before I finish the vote of thanks, I have a special announcement. We have arranged a cocktail party at 7:30 p.m. today at the faculty premises. So on behalf of the organizing committee of the 4th International Conference of Agriculture Sciences 2022, so I cordially invite you all to grace that event too, which will be started at 7:30 p.m. at the faculty premises. So once again, I thank you all for your cordial cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vimalasiri. Finally, to officially conclude the inauguration ceremony, we kindly invite you to rise to University Song.
Sabaragamuව සරසවියයි Sabaragamuව සරසවියයි සමනල වැව පිපි නෙළුම් නෙලාගෙන ගිරිකුළුවන රද මතින් ගලා යන ජීවිතයේ කඳු මුදුන් සොයාගෙන හාගල කන්ද නගින්නේ හාගල කන්ද නගින්නේ සිරිපා පහනින් එළිය ලබාගෙන මනරම් විදුනන අකුරු දරාගෙන කළුගම් පතුලේ රුවන් සොයාගෙන උඩුගම් බලා දෙන්නේ උඩුගම් බලා දෙන්නේ කගගින් දුදු අඳුර නසාගෙන ඔබෙත් මගෙත් හීනය කලලිවන දිනය උදාවන්නේ දිනය උදාවන්නේ මේ ඔබේ සවියයි මේ සවියයි සබර ගමුව සරසවියයි සබර ගමුව සරසවියයි